It is my pleasure to introduce Gary Walton. Gary Walton has been an enthusiastic Rotarian for 2 years, but he's been an enthusiastic printer for many more. Probably since you were what, 7th grader? So, Gary has taught printing for over 45 years at Cincinnati State and trained over 3,400 students in the art of printing. Gary has dedicated himself entirely to the Cincinnati Type Print Museum in Lower Price Hill. Even though his title is founder and director, he does not take a salary and volunteers his time and finances and resources for the benefit of the museum and the community. Price Hill is often recognized as one of Cincinnati's poorest communities. It's Gary's goal and the museum's goal to turn that around in the next 5 to 10 years. He hopes to bring wealth to the community through bringing printing businesses to Price Hill and creating sustainable career tracks for its people. The title of Gary's talk today is Benjamin Franklin, the greatest founder of them all. Let's give a warm welcome to Gary Walton.
Before I start, I want to give some kudos to the red light table. A year ago, 3 of its members, which I didn't know at that time were red light table guys, but Owen and is Fred here? Fred Fisher, are you here? No? How about Don Keller Jr., is he here? These 3 gentlemen came to the museum, and I shared with them what our vision was and asked them for their advice. And they gave it very willingly, and we've implemented a lot of things that they've told us we should do. And 2022 was a fantastic year for us, both financially. We broke every record of attendance. I mean, it was just incredible. So thank you, Owen. Owen's the only one here, so give Owen a round of applause for his wisdom that he did. So my presentation today is Ben Franklin, the greatest founder of them all. But like any speaker who's especially functioning with another organization, I got to do my dog and pony show first. So I'm going to do this fast. All right. So I'm with the Cincinnati Type Print Museum, which is in its 7th year. We're starting our 7th year. If you don't know, I'm Gary Walton, Professor Emeritus at Cincinnati State. Never worked a day in my life. Never worked a day in my life. Went to Cincinnati State, taught for 35 years as a full-time faculty member, and loved every minute of it. Loved every minute of it. And then when I retired, I started the museum, but I also was an adjunct at Cincinnati State for another 10 years. But starting in 2021, the workload at Cincinnati State became so great, I had to give up teaching at Cincinnati State. I truly believe, like some people's God-given calling is to go serve people in Africa, I truly believe my calling is to serve the printing industry. Here's the front of the museum, and we stand on 3 pillars. Do you see the 3 pillars? Okay, see them right there? So literally stand on 3 pillars. Number 1, we want to preserve the history of printing in Cincinnati and make people aware of the career opportunities. There's some fantastic career opportunities that pay really well. 120 years ago, we were the 2nd largest printing center in the world. New York was first and we were 2nd. 100 years ago, Cincinnati was the Mecca city. This is where things happen. And in that time period, 3 United States presidents are going to come from this area, plus a lot of good senators and representatives. Procter & Gamble is going to be forming. I mean, this was the place to be in Cincinnati, and we want people to remember that. Number 2, to create an environment for artists to make handmade paper and print with letterpress printing. Letterpress printing is an art form now, and designers just love it. They come in and we have to kick them out because they just love being able to create things in our museum, and for all ages. The top is homeschoolers. I always like doing homeschoolers. That's a blast. To the bottom, to college and high school students. And then in the top there for men basically coming out of the prison system and our rehabilitation program for them. The most important thing we do, pillar number 3, is we are providing jobs and training for the people of Price Hill. If you can take people in a poverty area and you can give them high-paying jobs and then keep them in that area, that's how you bring wealth to that community, and that's how you eliminate poverty. Also, that's how you raise the high school graduation dropout, or lower, I should say, the high school dropout rate, is providing them good jobs with exciting opportunities, and that's how you eliminate poverty. And we will do that. I promise you, we will do that in the next 5 years. Okay? We're no longer going to be the poorest. We're going to be maybe the 3rd. I'm happy to report that because of Owen and all the other advice that he gave me, we are going to be starting our 2nd training center, just 6 blocks, which is a much bigger space. It is already full of equipment that printers have donated. And our goal this year, I'm going to publicly announce it so you'll hold me accountable, will be 40 to 60 individuals we're going to train and put into the printing industry at the end of 2023. Now, when you see me throughout the year, go, how many have you placed? How many have you placed? How many have you placed? And see, that'll motivate me. Okay? So let's get to Ben Franklin. And he is definitely my hero. Okay? He is one of the founding fathers. And just out of curiosity to see if your 6th grade history teacher did her job, how many founding fathers are there? How many men signed the Declaration of Independence? Sorry, ladies, it was just men. How many? 7? Nope. Ooh, 34, close. Nope. Too high. Too high. 32 signed the Declaration of Independence. Send me your mailing address, and we got a little gift for you that we'll mail to you. Some cards that the ladies have created. So, okay, 32 men stepped up and put their name on that document. And by the way, realize that's no easy thing they did. When they put their name on that document, they were actually saying, I'm putting my life on the line, because if they lose this battle, they're going to be hung from a tree. Okay, so it was no easy thing they did. When you think of the founding fathers, George Washington's got to be one of them. Okay, he, in my opinion, he was the best. Okay, but I'm going to save his title. He was the best president that we've ever had. People argue about this all the time, but if you think about it, he was an incredible general who figured out how to beat the best army in the world, the British, by persistence and never giving up. He also was a great president. He's the one who set in place, I'm only going to serve for 8 years. I'm not going to be a tyrant. I'm not going to be a king. I'm going to be a true president and serve for 8 years and then let someone else take over. Okay? King George, when he heard this, said, this must be a truly great man. So George Washington, founding father, he's not the best, but he was a great president. And then I got to throw in my buddy John Adams. He's the one I like. I think I take after John Adams in some ways. He was a bulldog. You know, he ticked off people. I'm sorry to say I tick off people. But as one gentleman from my past said to me, he said, you know, Gary Walton, he says things wrong, he screws things up, but his heart is always in the right place. And that is me right there. My heart is always in the right place. And John Adams' heart was always in the right place. Okay? Then we got to throw in Thomas Jefferson, because he was there, you know, and he's a good guy. He and John and Ben, they wrote the Declaration of Independence, but I'm a true believer that you got to keep your finances in order. And if you don't do that, I don't think you're that good of a guy or gal, you know. And so the Congress, the Library of Congress catches on fire. All the books are destroyed. He steps up and says, I'll replace those books. Oh, wasn't that nice? Oh, by the way, I want a huge amount of money for those books because I'm so much in debt. I need that money to get out of debt, you know. When he dies, he told all his slaves that he's going to free his slaves, which was very good. But he was so in debt that they go, sorry guys, you're not free. We're going to sell you because we need the money to pay off Jefferson's debt. So he's good, but he's not the best. You don't know this guy very well, probably, but you should. John Hancock, I love this man. He is the CFO of the American Revolution. He's the one that got us the money to be able to be successful in this. There would be no Yorktown if it wasn't for John Hancock, because the soldiers refused to go until he put coins in their pockets, and then they marched to Yorktown. Okay, he is the CFO. The French, when they come, okay, they were really upset with the way that the Americans treat them. They didn't treat them like they were used to being treated, you know. And John Hancock steps up to the plate. He puts them on his boat. He treats them nicely. He gives them good food. He's got music playing in the background. And the admiral was impressed. And he then goes to Yorktown, and then we win the war. Have you ever tell me why did he sign his name so big on the Declaration of Independence? That's right. He wanted King George to be able to read it without his glasses. By the way, the more I read about King George III, he really was a good guy. He really was. I mean, we belittle him a little bit, but he was a good guy. I got to throw this one in. And you figured out why. You know? George Walton was the youngest signer of the Declaration of Independence at 26. He went on to be the governor of Georgia. There's actually a city in Georgia named after him. My great-uncle, Hubert, said that we are descendants of George Walton. And so in case you want to look, he's the third name on the left-hand side, and I've been telling people that since I was 12 years old, you know. At one of these meetings, someone said, have you ever really checked to see if you really are? Using Ancestry.com? I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'm pretty positive my great uncle was trying to inspire me. And so I'm pretty positive he made that up. But I'm going to keep thinking I am. So I'm not going to, no, there's no way I would ever look that up. No way. All right, let's get to our man, Ben Franklin. And I hope when I'm done that you will agree with me that he is the greatest founder of them all. He is the American dream. When you think of the American dream of starting with nothing and then rising to the top, that is Ben Franklin. He was in a low-income family. He had lots of brothers and sisters. Okay, his father realized he couldn't send him to school, even though he was a very smart young man, couldn't send him to school. So he makes a deal with Ben's brother James, his older brother James. And he says, you will now be my apprentice. And this meant, really, if you really study it, it really means you're going to be my slave for the next 2 years. And he could beat him if he wanted to. He could punish him by not giving him food. I mean, you were literally a slave when you were an apprentice. All right? He did have to promise, though, to give him 2 meals a day, but he could give him 1 meal one day and 3 the next, and that still counted. He had to give him a place to sleep, which would be underneath that press, because he was the security guard at night, so no one came in and stole anything from the shop. Okay? And then he had to promise within 2 years that his apprentice would be able to print, that he would know how to print. Now, if that didn't happen, the father could actually sue his son for failing on his obligation of not training his son and get some kind of financial reward for that. Okay? Ben was a very, very good apprentice. He could read and write and set metal type and a composing stick much faster than his brother. Did that make his brother happy? No, there was tremendous jealousy between the two. And he beat him a lot of times when he did something good, you know. His first responsibility as an apprentice would be in charge of making the ink from black soot, from animal fats, and beeswax. And then he was also in charge of something called the ink ball. So you see these holding this wooden handle, and it's got leather wrapped around it, and it's got cloth, and ink is on there, and his job is to pound that onto the type form to be able to get an image to appear. And so this is what they would look like just by themselves. And these were valuable. I mean, this would take time to make these and so forth. So you had to take good care of those. And in colonial times, we all knew that leather has a tendency to dry out and to rot. So to slow that down, you just need to put it into a mild acid. But this is colonial time. There's no chemical companies. Where are you going to find a mild acid? Easy. We all knew back in colonial times. Just find a cow, a female cow preferably. Okay? And when she urinates, that's a mild acid. So your job every other day, the mild acid would last for about 40 hours. Your job every day was to go out in the morning, cows are like humans, they kind of do it at the same time, is to take that bucket, put it underneath there, and collect your sample of mild acid. So you imagine Ben sitting there, he's got his pipe smoking, got the bucket down there, and the cow, kind of like people do again, when she's all done, takes her foot and kicks the bucket over. So there goes all the mild acid on the ground. So Ben would come in, throw the bucket against the wall, and everybody knew exactly what happened because they'd all experienced it some in their life. And he would sit there and take those ink balls and go like this all day long. He's smoothing the ink across those ink balls. But he'd be looking out the window to see when old Betsy would do her business again. And as soon as she did, he would drop the ink balls, run out there, collect that sample, and bring it back. And he did this day in, and day in. Then one day, a salesman comes in with a carpet bag. And in that carpet bag, he pulls out a handheld ink roller. And he says, now you no longer have to blotch it. With this ink roller, we can roll across the form, and it'll be an even film of ink. So the ink at the top of the page, the bottom of the page, the right, all the same, even. Okay, and then he says, and it's made of rubber. So you no longer need to put it in a mild acid. Ben learned real quick this important thing here about the handheld roller. Those with the most amount of knowledge, that's the people in this room, by the way, just so you realize that. Those with the most amount of knowledge are the least willing to change. Those with the least amount of knowledge are very willing to change. So was James, his brother, willing to change with this new technology? No, because he wasn't collecting the urine samples. Okay? You know, he wasn't. What do you think did Ben like this new idea? Oh, he loved it. He loved it, you know? One of my fears, as I spoke last week, as we go into printing electronics, as some of the older goats that I work with are going to look at this and go, nah, that'll never work. That's not going to be a reality. And it's going to be the younger ones who actually go, hey, that could work. And so they're the ones going to be making the profit instead of my buddies. But maybe I can change their mind. All right, back to Ben. Ben was a very good apprentice. He could read and write and set metal type and compose much faster than his brother. Okay? He was actually smarter than his brother. He really was. His brother got put in prison because of some things that he wrote and the British government didn't like. So while he's in prison, Ben takes over the shop. And sales of the newspaper go up. I mean, they do really, really well. His brother comes back and Ben says, you know, I did a really good job. I should just keep going. Was his brother happy about that? No, beats him again. Okay? Throws him out. So Ben decides, I'm going to show my brother that I really am smarter than, well, not really smarter than him, I really can help this business. So he decides to write letters in secret. And at night, put them under the door. And he signs them always, I am, sir, your humble servant, Silent Do-Good. Now, if you think about this, this shows that his brother wasn't too smart. Here's Ben, who's silent, who's trying to do good. So the name itself kind of fits like a little riddle. If you think about it, that's me. I'm the one who's writing these letters. So he writes these letters. His brother loves them. He publishes them. They start selling newspapers even more than before. 4 men propose to marry Silent Do-Good. They write, we want to marry this woman. She's something else. Okay? When he does his 14th letter, he decides it's time now to tell his brother who really is Silent Do-Good. So he does. Is his brother happy? No, he's really pissed. I mean, he gives him probably his worst whooping ever, you know? And so that night, Ben realizes he's not going to make it in Boston. By the way, where's Boston? We have someone from here from Boston? Oh, you lost him. You should have told James to behave himself. You lost him. Okay? And he goes to Philadelphia. So at the age of 17, Franklin saw there was no path in Boston with his brother, and so he flees as an apprentice, but remember, as a slave. His brother could actually put a warrant out for his arrest, but he didn't. Probably didn't know where he went. Okay? And he starts his life all over in Philadelphia. This penniless teenager fled from Boston and grew up and became a very successful printer in Philadelphia. This would be his a sample of his press. And it was mentioned that my birthday's coming up. And if you got nothing to do on Monday the 23rd, you're welcome to come to the museum, and we're going to have a little party for me on the 23rd. And this gentleman from First National Bank, his name is Marshall, has decided he wants to build that press for the museum so that we will actually have a Franklin press, but it's also a Maxwell press. William Maxwell was the first printer in Cincinnati, and that's what his press looked like. So we're going to call it the William Maxwell press, but it is also the Ben Franklin press. Okay? And it also looks very similar to the Gutenberg press. If you didn't know, you would think it's the Gutenberg press. But if you're coming, we're doing a little fundraiser. You can put $1 in a jar, eat some cake, see the museum, and help support this project that we're doing to build a Ben Franklin type press. Oh, doors open at 11:30, and we'll close at probably 2:30. Okay. And there's a gravel lot to the side, or park on the street. You know, you can see me afterwards. Backing up here. So yes. So Ben makes lots of money for this printer. They get a good relationship. Ben actually buys the business from him. In 1733, he prints the almanac. Okay, how many heard of Poor Richard's Almanac? Okay, realize this made him a huge fortune. Huge fortune. He's going to do this for 25 years. He is going to become a wealthy man because of this. Okay, just print some facts about gardening and some other cute little things. But people bought this up like crazy. Okay, and he makes a huge fortune. As he's rising in power and notability, if there was a Rotary Club, by the way, he would have been a member. He decides that he's going to be the Postmaster General. And they said that was okay. And then he prints all the stamps and charges for them. He decides that they need currency, so he volunteers to be in charge of the Bureau of Engraving. And he prints 11 different forms of currency that he got paid very well for. Okay? He's a very smart man, though. I admit he actually made the money with misspelled words. So that if a counterfeiter would see it, the counterfeiter would think, oh, I got a counterfeit bill here, and they would spell it correctly. And then that's how you know that it was not correct, because it was spelled properly. So by 1748, he is 42 years old. He's extremely wealthy, and he does something that nobody ever did. He hung up his printing apron, and he became a gentleman, a Rotary Club gentleman. Okay? He hanged up his apron, but he still had his business. He was a very smart man. As he trained his apprentice, you know, he had a lot of apprentices himself, he would then say to him, I'm going to set you up in business 20 miles outside of Philadelphia. So when he retires, he's got 20 different printing companies throughout Pennsylvania of all young people printing, and then giving him a kickback from that. So he had money coming in all the time, plus from his own plate. Very smart Rotarian. He knew how to run a business. Okay? So for his first 42 years of his life, he was in the printing industry. The next 42 is what everybody remembers him for. Okay? So Franklin retires and allows him to spend his remaining 42 years studying science and creating incredible things for mankind. He creates the lightning rod, the bifocal glasses, and the most effective heating stove. Those are the three that I'm going to hit on. Also, I think he also does the battery, which I don't think I have that in there, but we'll see it. So this is a picture you've all seen, Ben Franklin with the kite, with the ring. But what people don't realize, what he was really trying to prove here was that lightning was not a curse from God. In colonial times, if your house got hit by lightning, people would say, oh, you did something bad. God's cursing you, you know. And he proved that no, it's just electrical energy. He then creates the lightning rod to prevent your house from being destroyed. In 1971, my house was hit by lightning, and it's amazing the damage it did. It just like knocked out a quarter of the house. I have lightning rods all over the house now. You know, and so basically he saved a lot of buildings by putting in lightning rods. As he was reading and studying, he got tired of taking off his reading glasses and putting on his regular glasses, reading glasses and regular. So he says to himself, I'll just take a pair of glasses and cut them in two and make bifocals. And that's how bifocals were created. He had a lovely housemaid who did excellent cooking for him. But she would always complain that as she cooked, the front of her body would be warm from the hearth fire, but her back was always cold. So he made this iron stove that looks just like a hearth stove, but it's iron and sits out. But it would get really hot and radiate heat all over the house, so the whole house would be warm. Another thing I love about this man, everything he invented, he never took a patent on. Never took a patent on. He believed anything he created was good for mankind. See, he was a Rotarian, right? He was a Rotarian. Everything he did was good for mankind. So people came along and took his inventions and made them better. So the wood stove I have in my house is called a Franklin stove. It looks like this, but the front of it actually has metal doors, so that it's even more efficient than the one that he had. And then he created the battery, as we know as the electric battery. And so he took glass jars and put charged plates in them and connected them up together. And if you look at that, they're in the rows of the British soldiers. And so a row of British soldiers would be called a battery. So he calls his invention the electric battery. Okay? He has some guests over for before Thanksgiving. He's going to electrocute a turkey to show what electricity can do. So he's got them all there, you know, and he's kind of nervous, like, I better make sure this thing really works. So he grabs hold of the two probes. 48 hours later, he woke up. And the next day, they did kill the turkey. But he was the first to invent the electric battery, as we know it today. And by the way, there are lots of more things that he did, but I only have so much time, so I just picked these ones, all right? He was the only founding father to have signed the three most important documents that led to our independence. The Declaration of Independence, so he helped write it, but he also signed it. The Treaty of Alliance with France. So, as I just said, we won the American Revolution because of George Washington and his great military strategy. Okay? Second, from John Hancock, he's the CFO that financed it. But Ben Franklin is the third reason we won. Because of Ben Franklin, he got France to align with us. And that was no easy task. Can you imagine when he goes to France? Because of what he did with electricity. The French people were really into science. And what he did with electricity, he was considered to be a god. Imagine getting off the boat and there are thousands of people cheering you on. Thousands of people. You go into a restaurant and on the plate is your picture. Every plate, his picture's on the plate. Okay? When he comes to see the king anxiously wants to see him. He doesn't have to. Most people come see the king, they have to wait 2 weeks before he sees him. Ben comes and he goes in right now to see the king. I mean, his reputation in France was incredible. He would go to parties. And the French girls, the young, beautiful French girls, would all sit on his lap, you know, and just kiss him and everything. And he hated it. He hated it. push them off, you know, because the French believed at that time that you only took a bath once a year. So these beautiful girls, they were beautiful, but my gosh, were they ripe, you know, and oh, man. And you got 3 of them on your lap, whoo. And one time he got so mad, he jumped up and he said, you can take a bath at least once a week, whenever you want, and he strips down naked at a party like this, okay, goes out to the fountain, takes a bath, and comes out, see, I'm not sick. Next day he came down with a cold. So much for that, didn't that? But he did invent the air bath, which I highly recommend you do the air bath whenever you want. Okay, now the air bath is you strip down, you go up to the second floor, you find a big window like that, and you just stand there in your birthday suit and let the air bathe you. Okay? And it's a way of getting some of the smell off, you know. So, if you wonder, and by the way, it wasn't only the French that believe you shouldn't take a bath all the time. Lots of different countries believe that. If you wonder why brides get married in May, June, it's because they took their bath in April and they smell pretty good. So the guy would go, oh, hey, it smells good. If they waited till July, we then gave them a bouquet of flowers. So you would smell the flowers and not her, you know? And depending upon, I'm not making this up, this is truth, you know? If it was a person that perspired a lot, then the bride, everybody got flowers, you know? And also put a flower print for the guy, you know? So the French had some quirk, but he was able to get the French with their military and with their weapons and with their money to help support the revolution, and we won the American Revolution. And then Franklin signs the Treaty of Paris, which makes the United States of America a free country. He also was the signer of the Constitution. So 4 famous documents, Ben Franklin signs them all. No other founder did that, plus all the inventions that he did. So I believe after listening to me, the facts are clear that Ben Franklin really is the greatest founder of them all. And if you ever go to Colonial Williamsburg, go shake hands with the young Ben Franklin. He's a treat. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And when somebody says to you, do you know anything about Ben Franklin? Say, did you know for the first half of his life, he was a printer? And you really think he would not have accumulated that wealth if he wasn't a printer, and he would have not done all those other things. So you do have to thank the printing industry every day for what you do. I do have some time for some questions. I'll do my best.
Gary, can you talk a little bit about your printers that have been donated to you, or how many you have, and what they span life?
Okay, so I'll just give a quick breakdown. We had our the block board of trustees met at the museum this Tuesday. And I can pretty much do it from memory, what we shared with them for 2022. By this moment, we have 165 members, which I'm extremely proud. That means these are people who pay the minimum of $25 to be a member. I think I can announce this. We've raised $95,000, which our budget's $60,000, because remember, I don't take a salary, so that makes things, keeps things low. So we actually have money for 2023, which is going to go right into that second training center. So my goal is, I'm thinking for the next 3 months, I don't have to worry about raising money. I can just focus on that training center. 743 people visit the museum this year, which last year was 400, so we had 700. We gave 168 tours. We'll give a tour for one person. If you want one person, we'll do that. But most tours are around 3.5 people. We have a little miniature press that we take on site, so we'll go to places and demonstrate letterpress printing. And we went 34 different places, and we exposed the printing industry to over 3,350 people this year. Let me think, did I miss anything? Okay. Yes?
You mentioned that you're going to place 40 adults into the jobs in the coming year.
Yes.
I guess I don't really understand where they would go to work.
Okay, excellent question, and I didn't highlight that. So if you take a map, find the Cincinnati Type Print Museum, put a nail there, and then take another nail that represents 3 miles and make a circle. So in a 3-mile radius around the museum, there are 26 nice, well-established printing operations within a 3-mile radius. Oh, everything. I mean, see, people don't realize how printing is everything. Most of the clothing you're wearing is printed. Okay? The tags that you have are printed. The wallpaper is printed. T-shirts are printed. Printing electronics is a whole new market. Eventually, every electronic device will start on a press. That's a whole new market. The packaging industry is huge. So realize in the 70s, most of you weren't born yet. I was. We had our first Kmart came to the Coleraine Township in Cincinnati. Anybody remember that when Kmart came in the 70s? You don't admit it, okay. But they bragged that they had 50,000 items. Now, Kroger's at the time was in Cincinnati. They were no bigger than this room. Kroger's was no bigger than this room, and we'd be lucky if it had 5,000 items. Let's go into a Walmart or a Kroger's today, and there's 350,000 packages that have to be reproduced every month. So packaging is huge in Cincinnati, and Procter & God helps out a lot on that. I'm sorry, that's what we call them, Procter & God. You know, they have a policy that if you want to do business with them, you have to have a presence here in Cincinnati. Okay, so two of the companies that I mentioned that are in that circle are big Procter & Gamble producers. Okay, so my goal is to take the people from that community, and from Euler High School, Western Hills High School, those are the two that we're focusing on right now. For students who are not going on to college, who probably also are not doing that well in school, to, if they did drop out, to get them their GED, and then train them in the printing industry, and boom, put them to work. After teaching 35 years, I learned that you don't really need 2 years to get somebody a good job. We're doing it in 4 weeks. In 4 weeks, I can give you enough skills that I can get you in a good job, starting somewhere around $18 an hour with benefits, and then from there, you go up. You take these press operators who are running these multicolor presses, and I'm not exaggerating, they're making $50 an hour. Okay? But now these machines are producing like $5,000 worth of product every hour. So there's great opportunity in the printing industry. Okay? Like I say, we're the 11th largest printing center, so there's plenty of jobs. And just that 3 at 26, and as we get better, we'll expand that. Yes?
An interesting fact about Ben Franklin is he's a member of the International Swimming Hall of Fame.
Yes. He was the first to invent flippers. And hand flippers, but nobody liked the hand ones. Yeah.
Where in Price Hill is your museum, and how did they end up in Price Hill?
We're located almost on 8th and State. So if you're standing in the middle of 8th and State, everybody pretty much recognizes that beautiful bank building that sits there, okay? On that same side of the street, across the street, there's a little tiny park, no bigger than that table. There's a barber shop, which I hope to buy someday, and then there's the museum. My ultimate goal is by the year 2026, at that entire corner, there'll be a building there just like the one at the bank, but it'll all be at that point a communication museum. So when you first walk in at the corner, the first thing you'll see are the handprints of the cave people from France, because that was the first form of communication. Then from there, you're going to see the writings. Then from there, you're going to see the Egyptians. It's also going to be a culture. I didn't realize as we were doing this, it's a multicultural museum. You're going to see the Egyptians. You're going to see the Hebrews, who we believe were the first to create the alphabet. Then you're going to see the Chinese. Then you're going to see the Arab countries and what they did in their libraries and so forth. Then the Germans. And then we got thinking about it as we start to do the actual printing in Cincinnati. When we talk about the history of printing from like 1850 to 900, we're going to talk about the very strong Jewish-German printing community that was here. By the way, I just found out, did you realize this building was built for Jewish businessmen? This was the Jewish Businessmen Club, okay, and then eventually joined with the Queen City Club. And then from 1910 to 1925 will be the African American printers. So still talk about printing and the revolution, what printing happens, but also the different cultures that use that. You know, and I think that'd be a nice carrot to put for the museum. There was one other question you asked, and I don't think I finished it. So I graduated. I retired from Cincinnati State. My dean says to me, hey, there's these people down in Price Hill, they're called Community Matters. They're thinking about doing a museum, or a print shop. Would you be interested? I'll go talk to them. So I talked to them, and they were going to put me in the basement, but I thought it's okay, you know. And they said, can you really get all the paper donated? I said, yes. Can you really get all the ink donated? Yes. Can you get all the equipment donated? Yes. That's my gift God has given me. I can get people to give me equipment, paper, and ink. I'm not so good with money, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better. And everything was going fine, then all of a sudden they said, we don't want to do it. No thanks. And I was sad for 5 minutes because Dwight Young, the founder of Block Ministries, said, can you really get all that stuff donated? Yes. And he took me to our location, which he had just bought the building, I think, for $15,000, and it was a mess. And the city gave us $250,000. They liked what we were doing, and we renovated that building. We had an open house in 2016. They loved it so much, they said, would you like another $250,000? We said yes, and we built the second building. And now we're in the process of building building 3 and building 4. When building 3 and 4 get complete, you'll look like just one big building. Okay? And then building 5, that's the big plan, where we take over the entire block. Yes?
I
I have a client who has a parking area over the Rhine that has charging stations for electric cars.
Okay.
Can he today buy your solar panels for $20 and install those to provide the electricity to his charging station?
So it's all in what? It's all in the research stage right now. There is a professor, for example, a college in Australia is big into it, and they've actually got these solar panels printed on the roof and collecting energy. One of the professors actually put solar panels on his car and literally drove all around Australia just using solar technology from that car. In 5 years he'll be able to. Well, see, he still needs a big space, all right. But in 5 years, very easily, when you put on a new roof on your house, you're going to put solar shingles on your house. Okay. Well, they are available now, but they're kind of expensive, so you might want to wait 5 years. But they look like regular shingles. They look like regular shingles, but they collect the energy and put it in your house. I believe in the next 10 years, Duke's going to be in trouble because pretty much every home will be its own supplier of energy. And on the 26th, when Kathleen comes to talk, I want to say to her, hey, we got the solution for you, because solar is 100% environmentally friendly. You're not polluting the environment at all, And then also there's another thing we're doing too, which I don't have time for, but that's another speech sometime. We've come up with a way of eliminating landfills. I know that's mind-boggling, but the printing industry has come up with eliminating landfills.
So, Gary, as you go forward, do you think you'll bring in other printing types, screen printing, dye sublimation, daguerreotype? I mean, will you be kind of expanding your museum's capture of all the different styles and function?
Okay, so when I started back in 2012 of building this, I also built a screen printing facility. So the museum is strictly letterpress right now, but we also have block screen printing that does the same thing we're doing in training people in the screen printing field. In the plans for the second training center, there's going to be a digital center where we'll have digital devices to do digital printing. And then also, my expertise is offset lithography. That's what I love dearly. And so I've actually got a antique offset. I've got 2 multi-lift 1250s that go back to 1936, which that was my baby when I loved running those things. And then we just required a ATF Chief 25-inch offset press, which needs a lot of work, but you'd easily train on that, and someone can learn the basics and then go get a job. Yes?
What are the hours of your museum?
It's a working museum, and for when people come, we want to give you your best experience. So we don't have hours. We have appointments. You make an appointment. Because when you come to the museum, I want you to be able to cast your name in hot metal the way Ben Franklin would have made his name. So I've got this machine that heats up lead to 600 degrees, but it needs 3 hours. So we got to plan it. We got to get a press set up for you. So when you come, you just boom, 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 get to do everything. So it's by appointment only. Yes, and I did that for Owen when they came down. We had everything set up. So feel free to get on our website, Cincinnati Type Print Museum, and you can make an appointment on the website.
Gary Walton, thank you for your enthusiastic and very informative speech. You can tell Gary is a gifted educator because you make it so engaging, and you put a lot of personality into your presentation. Thank you so much for your passion for printing and for our community. It obviously is making a big difference and a big impact in Lower Price Hill. I wanted to share with you this Rotary Club of Cincinnati coin and our 4-way test as a token of our appreciation for your enthusiasm for this club and for the city of Cincinnati. We appreciate that so much. And we're also making a donation in your honor to the End Polio Now campaign. As you know, we need just a little bit more oomph to eradicate that dreaded disease. Let's give Gary another round of applause. Thank you so much.